No, I was just wondering whether I was the only one feeling like a dunce today. Anybody else kind of, I got a lot of it, but there were some blank spots, and when I have blank spots in my learning, then I seem to become preoccupied with utter frustration at where those spots I missed, why I can't, get with it because we keep moving on. So it reminds me of my childhood school days. So I can't even remember where those blank spots were, except I seem, we the following week after each meeting, we have experiences that seem to try to illuminate or elucidate these premises, but I just keep feeling like I'm having a learning failure week after week. I'm being honest. There are a few things I get, and I'm afraid I'm going to have another one of those weeks where I'm constantly given a puzzle.
Well, first of all, let me tell you, this is a very long book. And what you don't get today, you will have the opportunity to get again. And there's no final exam. I want you to go ahead and take whatever amount of time it takes for you to...
Well, there may not be a final exam, but there sure is instant karma, and that's what keeps baffling me. I feel like I'm just missing something, and I ask my guide, what is this missing ingredient that I cannot recognize in my week that I can say, wow, that's just like me. I keep having experiences where I have to say, no, that's not like me.
Indeed, that's a sign of progress. When you see your own or another's ego premises governing, you do indeed have to be able to say, no, that is not me. And you have to be able to say, no, that is not them. Because if you don't arrive at a place where you are able to distinguish between what is true and what is not true about you or another, you're in no position to be an agent for change. You're in no position to facilitate correction. You're in no position to promote improvement. Now, you think that because you're on your spiritual path, you are supposed to less and less often look at your brother and say, there's something wrong there. As though saying, quote, there's something wrong there, unquote, is creating a problem there. Do you think that I would be of any help whatsoever if I were not able to distinguish between what is not true about you and what is true about you? Or what you are believing that isn't true, that's fouling you up, and what the truth is about you that resolves that dilemma? I must be able to see the difference between the tares and the wheat. And you must learn to make the distinction between the tares and the wheat, so that you don't gather it all into the storehouse thinking it's all wheat when it's not. And where the tares will spoil the harvest. You know what? If you're only getting 2 or 3 things a week that are gelling, thank your lucky stars. Be grateful. And don't set a task for yourself that you're supposed to be doing better. For any of you to be seeing truth more clearly in any respect, no matter how minuscule it is, it's the leaven that leavens the whole lump. It has an effect that is far-reaching because it constitutes a gift you are giving that is real. Now, I know the weeks between these gatherings are difficult, and I know that what I'm telling you is causing unsettling to occur within you. But what's becoming unsettled are the conceptual structures that have been keeping you bound. They are being weakened. And at the same time that they're being weakened, your capacity to know what is true is increasing. I know some of you feel like the further along we go, the less loving you seem to be able to be. Not because you're not feeling loving, but because you feel called upon to not join in the ego's invitation to mutually agree upon the truth of a lie. And you're presented with that practically all the time. So now it seems as though all the time you're not able to be sweet, and you're not able to be supportive, because you're having to say, no, I won't join you here, but here's where I will. And then you hear, but that's not what I asked of you. I want you to join me here. And you have to say, no, I can't. I won't agree with you. I won't behave in a way that allows you to be comfortable when you can't be comfortable because what you're doing doesn't fit with the way things work. You're not the only one confronted with this. But Paul feels less fortunate than he thinks I am, because I can say, I won't join you in your illusion, and then you can't find me to disagree. But you can find Paul, and it came out of his mouth. But you know what? If I were in the room with you, appearing to you the way Paul is appearing to you, I would still say, no, I will not join you. What you are doing is not an expression of intelligence. What you are doing, as I sometimes say, is stupid. You need to stop doing it. I would be as direct with you, quote, in person, as I am right now. And I would be being the Christ. and you are being the Christ, when you do not swerve from the consciousness of truth that will relieve suffering, even though the one confronting you says that being unconscious of the truth is what will preserve my comfort and stop the suffering. I'm only suffering because you're confronting me with the truth. Well, if you're like me, you have no problem saying to them, that's true. You are suffering because I'm presenting the truth, and you want to operate in a truthless arena. In other words, an arena in which lies are accepted as useful, meaningful, valuable, and not destructive, not undermining of all that is worthwhile. Do you see? That's what you're asking for. Do you see the destructiveness of it? Do you see the unprofitability of it? Do you see that it does not serve to do anything other than keep you absolutely in an experience of suffering? They say, no, no, no. No, no, no. It's the truth. It's what you're trying to get me to see that is disturbing my peace. It's not what I believe that's disturbing my peace. It's the fact that you won't shut up and leave me at peace in the way I see things. You have to be willing to be the Christ and continue to not join when the ego seeks agreement, wanting you to believe that a lie is true. And you have to recognize that it is a sign of your progress that you're no longer able to be sucked in, and that you're no longer willing to join in the mutual agreements that don't upset the status quo and ensure that healing won't happen. Okay. Is there?
I was just going to say that I find that as we persist every week, that as my beliefs get undone and the way that I be feels like it gets undone, Sue, I don't feel like it's the same thing that would measure whether I'm getting the book is getting undone too. So it just sort of feels like it's unraveling a lot of ways that I've measured whether I'm getting something or whether I'm a success at something, or do you know what I mean? Because like the thought structures that I operated within to measure that feel like they're fading as well. So I just wanted to add that.
Raj, from what you have been saying today, I'm getting the feeling that we have a twofold function, and that is to become more clear of the vision of who we are, and at the same time we're dismantlers of the structures that the ego has put into place.
No, you're undoers of misperceptions that you, not the ego, that you have put into place and then chosen to believe.
Okay.
Yes?
Yeah. And the way and how we do this is critical.
Well, the only thing that's critical is that you actually do it. If you have gone into a forest alone that you're not familiar with, and you have marked with a rope trees along the way so you could retrace your steps and get out of the forest. The only thing that's necessary to get out of the forest is, well, we're going to say in terms of awakening and undoing false steps that you took away from home. The only way you can truly retrace your steps and undo the steps that you've taken is to come back to each tree and take the rope off and carry it with you out of the forest. Many of you have marked well by your decisions your trek into ego structures. And many of you say, I want to wake up and I want to undo these. And so you start back out of the forest, but you leave the ropes there so that you have a backup, so that you have a safety net, you might say, so you can get back to the part of the forest where you had managed to establish a certain degree of comfort. But as you come home, you have to undo the marker. You have to undo the decision. You have to undo the definition you gave. And, for lack of better words, dissolve it. You have to take the marker with you so that the way back is no longer marked.
You can't find your way, it's over.
Exactly. Otherwise, you're playing with the idea of waking up. Oh, I'm on my way to the pearly gates. I'm on my way to the gateway to the kingdom of heaven. But I know how to get back where I was if it gets to be too much for me, you see. That's what I was talking about yesterday. When you dive into the pool without a backup so that you swim for your life, so that you make commitment to being where you are and coping with the experience of being from there, because then you bring yourself fully to the moment you're in and fully to the capacity to experience in what way the water does support you that is entirely different from the way the solid land supported you that you're familiar with. So it isn't how you do it. It isn't how you come out. It's not how you undo it. It is that you actually undo it. That you untie the ribbon or the rope from the tree and carry it with you so that there is no marker to lead you back, because you have committed yourself to abandoning the old paradigm, abandoning the old values, abandoning the old attractions, abandoning the ways that you had sought for fulfillment that weren't fulfilling.
But at the same time, we're learning not to be angry with those who are still involved. I mean, this is where compassion now, because I remember you saying not putting the tips on the arrows when they come, when you
Indeed.
disagree, when you
Indeed.
take your stand and you say absolutely no more, and then you get the argument feeding back. And this is where a lot of us have gotten tripped up. We get caught up into the drama again because we don't know how, or we haven't learned, or we haven't made the choice, or we haven't, whatever we haven't done, to put the shield up that keeps the tips, keeps us from putting the tips on the arrows.
But you see, when I look at you or I look at anyone else here, and I recognize when you're doing something unintelligent, I recognize that, but I don't get upset about it.
Right.
I recognize it and I don't ignore it, but I don't get angry about it. And I also don't leave it alone. I speak appropriately in the process of facilitating correction, because correction still needs to occur whether I'm upset by your ignorance or not. You see what I'm saying?
Right, and you can even take a very harsh, it may be sounding harsh, but you don't feel harsh inside. In other words, whatever the situation calls for, in the manner that correction is to be facilitated, which you don't know except the Holy Spirit guides.
That it's you are moving into a fringy area here, because it has nothing to do with behavior. It has nothing. I have no intent to behave in a Christ-like way, or to behave in a firm way, or to behave in a harsh way, or to be careful I don't behave in a harsh way. It has nothing to do with how it appears. It has nothing to do with behavior. It all has to do with the simplicity of the absoluteness of truth, and that what is not true is not true. And whatever it takes to convey that what is not true isn't true, so that its invalidity can be clear enough to register with the one I'm speaking to, I will do. But it's all relative to the truth and its illumination, and has nothing to do with a me being an agent for change, or a me handling myself in this way or that way, you see?
I thank you for clarifying that, because it gets confusing on how it's supposed to look at sometimes.
Well, but I've never ever talked about that it's supposed to look like something.
No, I understand, but not all of us are have gotten that yet.
Now, why are you asking this? What does this have to do with making one's way back home? I'm going to put it bluntly. Did you ask this question for everyone else's benefit, or does it have something to do with you? Because if you asked it for everyone else's benefit, you're getting into territory that is irrelevant to your waking up and is none of your business. And I'm not just saying this to you. You started out your question initially by referring to what it is, quote, our function to do, unquote. I do want to pick up on those words, because if you're talking about a function other than being the unobstructed embodiment, of God's love moving into expression. If you're talking about anything, any other function than that, you have also gotten into a fringy fuzziness that is not only dangerous, it's really meaningless. If you're going to talk about your function, like as a teacher of God, or our function with our brothers, you have moved out of grounded connection with what function means, and the fact that your attention needs to be on the steps you're taking back in the undoing of what caused you to be ignorant of the truth. I mention this because it ties in with your subsequent comments about how it appears to others.
Well, I meant it is being appropriate. I mean, that it all evolves around that.
Appropriate in what context?
Appropriate in the way we stand up for what we see as true and how we deal with those who don't agree with us. Overreacting.
If emotion, if emotion doesn't enter into it, if reaction, in other words, does not enter into it, and you are paying attention to what the truth truly is regarding the circumstance, you will end up conveying what the truth is, because you'll be experiencing it clearly. And there won't be a you expressing the truth. You won't matter, the other won't matter, because it's the awareness of the truth that is the solution to the problem that you care about. How offensive have you experienced me to be?
No.
But I don't mince words. I'm straight. I call it for what it is. Why isn't it offensive? Because the focus is the truth. And the fact that the truth shall set you free. The truth is freeing. It's what isn't the truth that's binding. To whatever degree you have yourself on your mind in the process of being conscious of the truth and extending it, your attention is not on the truth, and you are liable to have reaction. Not because the truth draws reaction, but because the self that has itself on its mind is the ego, and it has an investment. And its investment is self-defense. And its best means of self-defense is to express superiority, because superiority puts people in their place. Superiority is frightening. Superiority can be overwhelming. So, if you have a self on your mind, well, I'll put it this way. If Paul had himself on his mind right now, what you would hear would be entirely different. If you have a self on your mind, then indeed you need to worry about how you're going to do it.